Okay, we're starting to go live here. We'll give a few minutes to really kick up here. So, for anyone just now tuning in, we're going to be doing a live broadcast in just a second here, celebrating the book launch of Into Darkness today. Hope everyone has ordered their print copy or has purchased their Kindle copy. But it is available now as of today, and we'll be starting in just a few minutes. Well, a few seconds. So, to anyone who doesn't know, I'm getting nervous with these type of things, so this should be interesting. I've kind of got a few different sections that I highlighted. I figure partway through we'll also stop, and if you have any questions that you want to ask about me, about my work, just go ahead and post them, and we'll see what we can answer. So, this was edited by Kim Young. She is a fantastic editor. I've really enjoyed working with her on my last few books. Willie Adkins helped me design the cover. So, and Patty Clark helped me to keep me focused and keep me writing. So, I wanted to say thank you to those people out there. So, and I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. This is, we're going to start with, I should mention that I'm not going to start from the beginning, because in the promotional leading up to the release today, I have posted many times just different, beginnings to it, the prologue, chapter 1 and such. So I'm going to be just skipping around quite a bit. So, thank you. I'm sure I'll need these later. So, without further ado, let me get to what is the first interlude in the book. So, let me take out my magic card here that I've been using as a bookmark. Okay. In the beginning, God created light and saw that it was good. In this light, He created the heavens and the earth. Hell came later. Before the light, before God, darkness was all that was known. It was from then the creature came into existence. Time was unknown, not yet part of days. The dark was not split amongst the light, and everything continued as an endless night. The creature was used to this darkness. It flourished in this moment outside of time. It devoured others and took them to be a part of it. Others lived in this time and thrived on each other. Some lived off of misery, some off life essence. It was a savage time. Worlds hadn't existed, and these creatures lived without form, pieces of the dark, but not a part of it. They had their own sentience, and did not rely on the dark, they only existed upon it. Then the light came. Time came. Days started and ended with the darkness now splitting the light. The things of before had to remove themselves to a pocket of non-existence outside of time, but those who could not had to find the shadows. One such creature hid deep in this new rock that flowed of the dark earth across its surface. It burrowed itself deeply, finding solitude a comfort as time moved on away from him. As light and dark, night and day fought for domination in a new existence, the creature hibernated, hiding from it all. Now we're going to skip ahead a little bit to chapter 4. I started with the interlude there, just, you know, a writer should almost never read his own work, because once again I read that in shudders. I'm still not 100% happy with it, but late now. But I'm moving on to chapter 4 here, just because I always love the more comedic moments when I can add them to my work, and this one I feel has that. So here we are in chapter 4 with once again our main character, Rob. Rob looked down at the long barrel in apprehension. It was aimed right at him. At any second it would fire, giving him little hope he would survive it. Just the thought sent a shiver through him, his bones getting chilled. "Are you ready?" He could hear the playfulness in the female voice. In the little glow from the back porch light, he saw her smile as she held the hose steady. She was enjoying this. He had just a second to think he might have married a sadist before he felt the water hit him. He howled. It was cold. The breeze picked up, making him feel like ice, sending tingles across his skin. Hot damn, he thought, shivering as he spun. Then the water stopped. His shoulders slumped, his shaking growing worse. He was going to get pneumonia and have to call in sick. Then what would they do for money? As he took a step toward the door, Robin called out to him, "Oh no, you're not done yet. Strip." He turned around to glare at her. He was no longer happy with this game, and he felt a heat rise up in him. His anger burned as he got ready to snap something back at her. Growing up, he had anger issues. He would be quick to get into a fight, and that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if you grew up on the streets of Chicago. In an Italian neighborhood, anger always ran hot. Fights were often, and you either adapted or you got hurt. When he got into high school, he started to realize how fighting would only get him into more trouble. More and more kids in the neighborhood started to go into juvie. Others got pulled into the outer fringes of the local mob family. Crime called for many of his friends, but he didn't want to be a part of it, not when he came from a family of cops. Rob's mother had always told him to calm his temper. Somewhere along the line he had. It wasn't easy, and it took a lot of self-control. He had to have a reason to keep calm. Robin was usually it. Although right now, Robin was not enhancing that calm, as she often joked. She was doing quite the opposite. "Hey now, pretty boy, I said to strip. Come on, dance for me." He lifted the bottom of his sweater and pulled it over his head. However, the white undershirt clung to the growing bulge of his stomach. Because of the more sedentary working conditions, his stomach had increasingly gotten bigger, his shirts becoming tighter. Struggling to pull it free, he gave a loud grunt, pulled it over his head, and tossed it on the top of the sweater. As he fumbled with the button on his pants, he heard her giggling. "Come on, da bear. When did bears start having issues tearing their way out of their clothes?" Rob looked up at her as he pushed his pants down and let out a guttural growl. Robin laughed harder. He pulled his pants off and tossed them on the pile. He looked around, thankful that the high wooden fence hid the surrounding house's view. No striptease? He was so glad she was enjoying this. He shivered, maybe even showing the first signs of hypothermia, but she just made jokes. He wanted to curse her in response, but his teeth chattered so hard he didn't think he could get the words out. Could she not hear them? They sounded like a Led Zeppelin drum solo in his mouth. That woman was crazy. That was all there was to it. You might want to take that off. Robin pointed to his cross, the one dangling around his neck, the one his grandmother had given him. He wore it every day, feeling the comfort of it against his skin. Rob undid the clasp as she held her hand out. He lowered it gently into her palm. She closed her hand around it, then reached out for his arm, pulling him to her. He wasn't expecting it, and stumbled forward into her awaiting kiss. Her tongue quickly made it into his mouth, and he could feel her warmth. Her arms went around him, pulling him closer. He could smell the familiar scent of her shampoo, a fragrance he had come to associate with her over the years. "You're shivering. Let me warm you up," she whispered against his lips. And she did. Her presence filled him with an inner warmth. He did everything he could to pull her closer, wishing to feel all of her in his arms. "You already have." His shivering relaxed, his teeth no longer chattering. "Why didn't you tell me you were so cold?" "What do you mean cold? It's a warm summer's day. How about we light a fire and toast some marshmallows?" "Don't be such a jerk." Robin vigorously rubbed her hands along his arms, the friction barely generating any kind of heat. "We should get you inside so you can take a hot shower." "You going to join me?" "Maybe, after you wash off your stink." She pulled away, waving her hand in front of her nose. She turned, picking up his soiled clothes and tossing them to the back steps. "I think you should. After all, you'll need to get out of those wet clothes." She spun around to see the hose pointed at her. "You wouldn't." Judging from Rob's smile, she knew he most definitely would. "Don't you dare!" Robin took a step back, not taking her eye off the hose. "You pull that trigger and you'll be sleeping on the couch, mister." Rob took a step forward, measuring her distance to the door. He still had plenty of time to soak her. "Oh, I think I will." "You'd better not." He let the hose respond for him. The water flowed out, catching her in the chest, drenching the knitted fabric of her sweater. "Ah, stop! I mean it, Rob." He took another step forward, but she turned, moving out of the path of the water. When the spray hit against the back door, he turned. He saw her moving in the shadows, getting around him. Rob would be the first to admit that over the last year and a half, he had let himself go. He used to hit the gym a couple times a week, keeping pretty fit for an officer in the Chicago PD. Since the fire and his hospital stay, he didn't work out as much. When he did, it was working through sore muscles, trying to get back his flexibility. He still wasn't quick, couldn't turn fast enough to keep up with her. Before he knew it, Robin was behind him. He heard the valve turn, then felt the hose in his hands grow slack. "Can't keep it up." "Oh, how you know better." When he turned to face her, mud hit his face. He felt it up his nose and tasted it in his mouth. He stumbled away, but the grass was slick. Before he knew it, he felt himself falling to the ground amidst laughter. "I warned you," the giggling woman standing over him said. He tried to wipe the mud away, but his hands were just as wet and dirty. It felt like he was just spreading it. As much as he wanted to openly glare at her, he couldn't. Rob heard the back door open. More giggling coming from behind him. Jake. It frustrated him that he couldn't turn around and look up, the mud forcing him to keep his eyes closed. "Go ahead and laugh, you two. Just wait. I'll get my revenge." The laughing behind him stopped momentarily, then came again in small bursts. "Sorry, Dad," Jake said between chuckles. "Did you get it in your eyes?" the woman asked, laughter dying away, genuine concern replacing it. Rob wanted to bite out a response. Instead, he took a deep, steadying breath. "Yeah, I got it in my eyes." Okay, there might have been a little more sarcasm in there than he wanted. "Oh, hon." Then he felt her arm slip under his and around his chest from behind. Robin pulled him close. "On 3. I'll get you inside and we can wash your face in the sink." He didn't know if she could see his nod, but she counted. When he felt her pull, he was quick to push with his feet. Rob stood and let her guide him inside. He was frustrated, covered in muck, smelled like sewage, and was cold. Right then, though. He's just focused on her perfume and the warmth of her against him. Okay, so that's the beginning of chapter 4 there. I'm going to take a second here and get a drink here. So I hope you've been enjoying this so far. Let's see, do we have any questions coming in? I'll take a break and we'll check, see if there's any questions. Water. How great it is. So let's see, do we have any? Okay, how do I even find it on here? Guess I should have opened this up before I look. Okay. Don't see any questions coming in yet. At least I have the post now open so that way I can find it. So, okay. Well, as we don't have any questions, I'm just going to take another quick drink of water and then we'll move on to the next, another section. I do want to thank everyone who is tuning in. So, if you had signed up to the, If you had signed up to the contest that we're running the last couple of weeks, you'll be notified later this week. The winners will. What was my inspiration for writing this novel? It's funny that would be asked. I actually wrote the first draft of this novel almost 20 years ago when I was still in high school. And I would have to say the biggest inspiration of it hits theaters next week. That would be my love of Stephen King's It. But I didn't want to do a clown or anything like that. But with the first draft of this had a lot to do with more so playing around with kids actually finding the darkness and or finding this cave that housed this creature, and that had something to do with the first draft. Not much of that draft has stayed into the book. It's very much now its own story, but it is the opening scenes has always been there, and that's something that it's almost, to me, it feels like it's almost word to word from the original draft. I mean, that opening scene has always been one of my favorites. When I say opening scene, I mean chapter 1. Who is the most interesting character? I would say it's two characters. I actually put them in the book as kind of a joke in a way. I created these two characters. They're best friends but not brothers. Called them Sam and Dean. And sure enough, they are these two characters that are constantly fighting and bickering. It was a little homage to the Supernatural series, which, you know, I was a big fan at the time. I just had some fun putting those two in there, and I really enjoyed doing that. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on here to try to figure out what my next section is that I bookmarked here. There's a couple starting on this page. So, okay, this is later. I think it's still in chapter 4 here, but it's later after he's finally gotten a chance to take his shower. So, I think I'm actually going to take another drink of water here before I start that though. So give me just 1 second. So. Once again, for those of you that are just tuning in, we're reading various parts of Into Darkness, and as a special due to the book just being released today. So here is the second part of chapter 4. Rob watched as she left the bathroom, the mist swirling in her wake. As soon as she left, The mist closed back in and turned dark. Really dark. It blocked out the light surrounding him. The water in the shower grew so hot it felt like it burned his skin. Shapes appeared in the haze, walking toward him. He couldn't see their faces, but knew they were the ones he couldn't save. The room disappeared, and he was alone in the dark. Breathe, Rob. Come on, breathe. He couldn't, though. As he tried to pull in air, the steam burned his lungs. The water got hotter. Fire flickered and writhed around him. Oops, sorry, let me reread that. Fire flickered and writhed around him, touching his skin and turning it red. Not able to see the shower wall, he reached out. He ran his fingers along it, but it was like touching ice, making him recoil. He reached out again, feeling the knob for the water and pushing it. The rushing fire pulsing at him died away, a sudden rush of air assaulting his lungs. He was able to take another breath, then another. The water no longer running, the mist dissipated, the room re-emerging around him. He knew the room I'm getting hoarse. He knew the room hadn't gone anywhere, but he wasn't sure whether or not he had. It wouldn't be the first time he had found himself somewhere else. That had been then, but things were good now. Get dressed, go downstairs, and eat that nice, warm supper made for you by that amazing wife of yours. Everything is just fine. He just had to convince himself of that. He stepped out of the shower, quickly drying with the towel. In the fading mist, he saw a glint of metal on the vanity and reached out to grab his cross. The glistening steel was cool to the touch, comforting. He felt relaxed as he placed it around his neck, taking a deep breath, smiling. Bacon. Damn, that woman truly is amazing. You know, I realize now I don't think that was the section I meant to highlight earlier. But, okay, do we have any more questions? Nope, so we're probably going to move on to the last section here. Let me take a drink of water before we do. So, like I said, this is reading of Into Darkness, which has just come out today. I hope you're all enjoying it. This is going along faster than I thought it would. Maybe I should have highlighted more sections. Okay. Let's see, how long is this last section here? Oh yeah, this is that part, okay. This is much later in the book, and yeah, I'm not going to give it much more introduction than that, so it speaks for itself, I think. So, Brady never felt like he had really fit in to the standard way of living. In fact, that had always been his credo. His life wasn't cut out to be standard material. He was meant for more than this. He had grown up in this little town, only leaving for short trips, such as his daily commute to the community college 15 miles north. This town just wasn't him. Sure, he looked like nearly everyone else. He was just under 6 feet tall, had a few extra pounds around the middle that, no matter how much he starved himself, always felt like there was more there than the day before. His blonde hair never lay right, so no matter how much effort he put into it, it was always a mess. And no matter how hard he tried, he could never grow a beard. His baby face always confusing people about his age. Not that he was into drinking, but whenever he did try to buy the occasional beer, he was always carded, probably thinking his ID was a fake. Maybe that was just his insecurities. When your name is Brady, and yes, it was because his parents had been big fans of the show, you were always on edge. He was a joke just waiting to happen. His parents were great, but there was always his parents were great, but there was always their well, he still lived at home with them. Still, okay. His parents were great, but were always there. He still lived with them, still enjoying the comforts of living in his room in the basement. Yet his life felt like it was stuck there. He was 21, working on the 4-year plan of junior college, and worked in a grocery store less than 10 minutes away from town. He wasn't even sure how it stayed open, considering the high prices. Was this really all he had to look forward to in life? It could get even better. Once he got out of junior college, he could always work at one of the local factories for a few bucks more an hour and still be living at home like a loser. With a heavy sigh, Brady set the large wooden box on the grass. At least his parents lived on the edge of town, so there weren't as many houses nearby. "Hey now, be careful with that," he heard his dad say. Brady turned to see the taller, thinner man lumbering down the back stairs. His dad had started going bald just a year before. Rather than watch the rest of it go, he began shaving his head. It was weird, but he had to admit his dad looked younger without all the white hair. Now he just needed to do away with the beard. He reminded Brady too much of Santa Claus and just looked wrong on him. "I am." "Good. It cost me an arm and a leg to have the lens fixed last time. I've had that telescope since I was your age, and it'll be yours to use with your own kids someday." Brady just shook his head. "Yeah, I need to meet a girl who finds me at least a bit interesting first. Like that'll ever happen." "It will," his dad said as he squatted down and latched the first of the 4 sides of the box. As he finished with the last latch, there was an audible release of the pressure, allowing his dad to lift the top, revealing a telescope that still amazed Brady. For 15 years, his dad and he had used it to look up at the moon. He still remembered the first time. He had to have been 5 years old, as that had been when they moved into the new house. His father had brought him outside, set up the long lens, then motioned Brady over. He told him, "Don't touch anything, just look." And Brady had, seeing the moon. He could see the craters, which was mind-blowing to his 5-year-old eyes. His dad had told him it was filled with cheese and the astronauts went there to bring it back. He then told him it was blue cheese, and just between the two of them, it tasted like puke. "You want to set it up tonight?" His dad asked as he set the lid down on the freshly mowed grass. "Sure, I'm not sure we're going to see much, though. Look at all those clouds." Brady looked up at the sky. "Yeah, I know, but we can always try." Brady was sure there was another reason they were trying tonight. His dad had made it a tradition. It's getting harder to talk. Where was I? His dad had made it a tradition to come out every full moon. The only times they had missed it were in the bitter cold and during storms. They would still try on a cloudy night, although they usually gave up on finding the moon and started looking for other things. It was sometimes just a brief glimpse of the neighbors, although Brady still blushed when his dad poked fun at him for catching Mr. and Mrs. Sanderson naked in their bedroom. He hadn't been trying to see that. In fact, he wished he hadn't seen it, and never wanted to see anything like it again. But most cloudy nights they wouldn't find anything to watch. It was more about spending time together. Brady had figured that out years ago. During his teenage years, he had been a real pain in his dad's ass about it, just wanting to be watching his favorite shows inside. Brady quickly went to work setting up the telescope. The ground was soft, but the spikes at the bottom of the legs dug into the dirt for sturdy supports. The tripod they used was a thick wooden and something Brady was certain his dad and grandfather had made long ago. He was used to the strange mechanism that operated the crank of the lens, and within minutes he had it up and tilted toward the sky. "Ready," he said, stepping back. His dad always did the fine-tuning. He started working at the controls. There were ones that would focus on the moon, while others adjusted it from side to side to zero in on the rotation. His dad did his thing, then stepped back, looking confused. He looked at Brady, then back at the telescope. "That's odd." "What?" "I can't see anything." "I told you it was too cloudy." "No, I mean, I can't see anything. Not even the clouds." "What do you mean?" Brady stepped up to the side lens and bent down so his eye was close to it, but didn't touch. He had years to practice. He closed his left eye, focusing his dominant eye to stare through the cascading lens that magnified the stars. "Nothing." "Huh," Brady said, stepping back. He adjusted the telescope, figuring maybe there was just a really dark patch in the clouds. He noticed his dad hadn't zoomed in too much yet, so there should be enough light to make out the traces. But as he looked again, he still couldn't see anything. "Here, let me look again." Brady felt his dad standing right behind him, so he moved to the side, looking up. There was nothing up there. That wasn't possible. But as he stared, he couldn't see stars or clouds. There was nothing but black above them. It wasn't the dark gray tone you usually saw. This was black, no color stretching to the horizon. There was just nothing up there. His dad scanned the sky, then stepped back. His mouth hung open as he looked at Brady, reminding him of someone who had just seen something they couldn't accept. That shock came when you found out Santa Claus wasn't real, or Elvira had just appeared at your front door. "I think maybe we should pack up and go back inside," his dad said softly. "What's wrong?" "I don't know." Brady started breaking down the stand and looked at his father, who still stared at the sky. "I really don't know." "Should we call someone?" His dad looked at him, eyebrows furrowed. "Who?" "I don't know. NASA?" His dad laughed. "And tell them what? The sky above our hometown is missing?" It was a nervous laugh. Brady joined in, helping to cut through the tension. His dad gestured to the house. "But maybe we'll go in and watch the news. Maybe they're saying something." Brady nodded as he fastened the last latch and picked up the box. He followed his dad inside, away from the pitch black sky. So, you're going to take a break there. That was everything that I had marked for reading tonight. So I'm going to take a few minutes if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask. So once again, I'd like to point out Into Darkness came out today. It's available on Kindle as well as in print. If you are a member of Kindle Unlimited, you can actually read it for free. Well, your monthly subscription, you know, all that. So, the audiobook should be coming out, I hope, later this year. Darren Marlar will be narrating, thankfully not I. So you don't have to deal with all my weirdness to it. So, as you notice when I tried to say the word mechanism, I have some words I just cannot pronounce. I just can't do it. I tried. That's one bottle of water down. Now on to the next one. So, I will check to see if there's any questions coming in just a minute. I'm still trying to get more water. Okay, let me check and see if any questions have come in. Let's Let's see, anything? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. I'll leave this running here for just a little bit here if anybody has anything they want to ask. Haven't really... We're going to do some giveaways, but I haven't really seen anyone that already doesn't have a copy ask a question or anything, so yeah. I'll give it just another few seconds, but if nobody has any questions, I'll shut her down for the night. I hope you've been enjoying this reading of Into Darkness. I feel like I should be doing the Jeopardy theme right now. Okay, well, everyone have a good night. Make sure to get your copy of Into Darkness, available now. And please leave a review because I always do enjoy reading feedback. So, good night.